Welcome back to Kids Planning. I'm Daniel, this is Allison, and today we are talking about why you board gamers should avoid Kickstarter.
Well, why you should avoid Kickstarter, more so a conversation about what you should know about Kickstarter, especially if you're new to the tabletop hobby.
Yep.
We're still relatively new. We've been really immersed in the hobby for over a year now. And when people start talking about Kickstarters, oh, are you backing this? Have you seen this? And it's like, oh my gosh, the game looks really cool. Yes, I'd love to play that, like right now.
Yeah. So,
but Kickstarters are not a right now investment.
Yes. So first let's talk about if you're new. Again, there's a lot of people that are going to watch this. Some of you may have backed some Kickstarters before. We have backed plenty of Kickstarters. Mm-hmm. They're great. But you have to be careful, and they can really, Kickstarters and a lot of times prey on FOMO, on that fear of missing out.
Yes.
She asked me not to say FOMO in the video.
Sounds so weird to me.
But I did it anyway. But they kind of, that they rely on that on people to get it. So Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform.
Yes.
Meaning,
there's Kickstarter, and I think now there's Game Found. Okay, is another one that's coming out just specifically for games. Kickstarter, you can find anything on Kickstarter.
Kickstarter is not just board games, but there's a lot of board games on Kickstarter. Right. So Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform where a game creator will go onto Kickstarter and basically pitch their game to the public to back it, to help support it, to help fund it. It's kind of turned into a lot of publishers will use Kickstarter to fund the production of their game versus the traditional retail model of just bringing a product to market and you go to the store and buy it, or you buy it off a website.
It's also a great way to advertise for a new game coming out.
Yes. And there's a lot of games that would not exist without Kickstarter. There's a lot of great games coming out thanks to Kickstarter. There's a lot of small indie publishers or new designers that have been able to kickstart their game, bring their vision to reality purely because of Kickstarter, because without that, they wouldn't have the seed money to do it. But there's also a lot of big publishers that do it in order to fund, like most games when they're on Kickstarter, some of them have no physical prototypes. They're just on Tabletop Simulator, an online platform. Most of them will have a few physical prototypes going around to reviewers. They've been refined. It's an actual game with a set of rules. The whole game is put together and designed, usually, but it's not in production yet. By backing the Kickstarter, you are funding, you are helping with the money that is going to put that game into production, to go through all the designs that are going to go to the factory, that are going to actually get it from the designer's computer files, all of that, most likely to a factory in China, and then on a boat, which is a whole other issue right now, back to wherever you are and into your hands.
Right.
And that process is probably going to take a year, sometimes two, sometimes more. And I think that's the first point we want to hit on with this is if you're new to the hobby, if you're new to modern gaming, it's really easy to look at a Kickstarter and say, oh, that game looks awesome. There's a back it now button. I'm going to hit that. The campaign ends in 28 days, so I'll probably have that game. Like, I can wait a month to get the game. And you look at it as a pre-order, not a funding the production of it. So
yeah, Kickstarters are not pre-orders. That's a completely different thing. I have seen a few Kickstarters where the production is already happening.
Yeah.
Or
they have advanced prototypes, and they'll do like an early backer where maybe they it was cheaper to get 200 prototypes made, or it was cheap enough than getting 10. So they'll go ahead and sell all of those early prototypes to the backers.
Right. That's very rare, though. Yeah. I haven't seen that very often. Right.
And that's never with bigger games. That's always with smaller, usually with card-based games, because you can get card-based games, prototypes made for pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Relatively, compared to a game with minis and things like that.
I had a friend of mine who follows me on Facebook, and she saw we were promoting a Kickstarter because that's what we do. We have usually small publishers will send us a game, or even just an independent publisher will send us a game for us to review and do a preview on our channel to get the word out that it's happening.
And we love to do that because that's an opportunity for us to support dreamers who
our whole family is full of dreamers, and so we love supporting that. Well, I had shared that on my Facebook, and so she messaged me. She was like, "Oh my gosh, this game would be perfect for our kids. Where do I order it?" And so I was like, "Well, it's on Kickstarter right now. You can go to the campaign here." And then I was like, you've probably never heard of Kickstarter before, have you? Because she's just a friend of mine. And she hadn't. And so I had to kind of tell her, okay, this is a campaign where you're actually paying to help the production of the game. This game probably won't actually get to your door if you back it until next year. It's worth it. We backed it, that specific game. It's worth it to get it, but there is a waiting process. And so introducing people to Kickstarter is still very, very true right now. Not many people know, in the grand scheme of things, what Kickstarter is.
Yeah. So specifically the people new to the hobby, why are we even making this video? Why caution people against it? Because again, there's really great games, really cool. But if you're new to this hobby, there's so many different kinds of games, so many different kinds of gameplay that if you're new to it, if you've only played a handful of modern games, you may not even know what you like yet.
It's true.
And you may look at a game on Kickstarter that looks really cool, that has all of these awesome miniatures and components. It just looks amazing. And you think, oh, I really want to play that. But are you going to want to play it in a year or 2 years, which is when you're actually going to have it? So that's really our first point of caution is if you're new to modern gaming, and you don't have a fully formed understanding of what games you like, there's a lot of risk involved in financial risk, if nothing else. And that's really all it is financial risk in backing a game that when you may not understand the kind of games you like. If it's a worker placement, area control, whatever game, like you look through it and you just think it looks good and they look cool. And I have backed games just because they look cool. Like didn't even look at how they played. It just looked cool.
I get an email saying that we backed it. I was like, oh really?
not many, but it happens, and it happens to a lot of people.
A lot of people.
So
there is Kickstarter regret.
And that is why the Kickstarters look cool, is so that people will back them because they look cool. And not necessarily because they really want to play the actual game.
Now, luckily, because it was already Tabletop Simulator and those simulating tabletop platforms developed before COVID and before pandemic and all that stuff. But since then, they've refined it, and it's made it where you can actually play test mini games on Kickstarter right now on a platform. Now, it's not physical. Having the physical game on your table is so different than those. They're finicky and things like that, but you will get the feel of a lot of the games.
Yep, and if you find the publisher on social media, a lot of publishers, especially the bigger ones, will set up playthroughs on Tabletop Simulator. So you can find them on Discord, you can find them on social media, and just ask, is there a time I'm interested in this game? On the Kickstarter, is there a time that do y'all have like a digital platform where you can actually play it?
That's the good thing that all this stuff has started, is that they have that open playtesting online, which is awesome.
Yeah. The other reason, kind of one of the big reasons we caution, or just want to express this caution, is you're not going to have it for like a year or two. So if you're kind of building up your board game collection, if it's a game where you're getting it because it looks cool and you're drawn into that, then it is probably at least in the $100 range, maybe $200, maybe $300 or $400. There are games that get up there.
Especially if you buy all the things, because Kickstarters will have Kickstarter exclusives.
Right.
And what are the unlocking, what it's called? What's it called when you unlock?
The stretch goals.
Stretch goals, when like enough people have funded to where they've achieved their goal and then some, they're able to, maybe instead of plastic tokens, they can do wooden, really nice, those type of things.
Minis instead of cardboard standees. There's a lot of great stuff that comes with Kickstarter. It's like,
where that FOMO,
yes,
that fear of missing out, is because a lot of that is Kickstarter exclusive, where even if it does and will go into retail, that won't be available.
Now,
a lot of times it's just Kickstarter.
One thing you can do is you can check if you have a local game store, ask them if they're backing it, because a lot of Kickstarters have retailer pledges specifically to get those Kickstarter exclusives. They'll buy a certain number of them, buy 5 or 10 copies of it. That's how we got Tidal Blades.
And Honey Buzz.
Yes, we got my favorites. The Honey Buzz isn't a Kickstarter.
Oh, it wasn't a
no.
Oh, never mind.
But Tidal Blades, we started in this hobby after the Tidal Blades Kickstarter, like right after it. So we missed that completely. And then it showed up, the giant box showed up in our game store.
He called me. He was like, so guess what's at the game store right now? Yeah. Tidal Blades. I was like, why are you even calling me? Why is it not in your car right now?
It's at home now. Where it belongs.
Where it belongs.
But so if you don't have the money to back it, or you don't want to invest that now, you want to kind of wait it out, check with your local game store. Ask them if they're backing it. Worst case, eBay, but it's going to be super marked up. So that's never just wait to get it on eBay, because it's
unless
going to
it's
be
one of those where you can't find it anywhere else.
Right.
It was only a
and
Kickstarter.
you really want it. So that, but if you're going to spend, like, seriously ask yourself, if you're about to spend $150 on a game when you have 5 or 10 games in your collection already that you play, that money might be better spent on games that you can play now, especially because we know that a lot of our audience is families that are playing with their kids. There's other investments that you can make in games that you can play with your kids now. Now, if you're down the road, if you're really into this hobby and you have a pretty solid collection and you have a game budget, something like that, where you're constantly buying new games and kind of refining your collection, that's a different story, because you have a lot of games you can play. But if you're trying to find games that you like and really enjoying that family time and trying new games, things like that, and you have a limited budget to put towards games, which I think most people do, then putting that into something that you're not going to see for a long time. And just ask yourself the question.
The reason we're having this conversation right now is not telling you how to spend your money or not to go to Kickstarter, honestly, because we really love the whole Kickstarter dynamic.
Yes.
We've backed many games. We will back many more games, I'm sure. It is that we have had this conversation over and over again. Okay, is that price worth it? We know we'll like that game.
Yeah.
Is it worth it to spend that right now?
Yeah.
We know that game, specific ones, will be in retail. We'd have to wait anyways. Should we wait? Are the Kickstarter exclusive worth funding it now? But then there's also those indie publishers where you're not only just backing that specific game, you are actually also helping that independent publisher, which we are all for. We love backing and knowing we're supporting those small companies as well. So there's different dynamics to look at, and reasons to back a Kickstarter and reasons to not back a Kickstarter.
And whether or not it's going to go to retail is another big thing. If there's a game that you really like, that you like the way it looks, it's going to be, it'll be a good fit, it may not go to retail. A lot of Kickstarters... They usually say, and you can always ask, but a lot of Kickstarters from smaller publishers or startups that don't have that retail pathway yet, or if it's just, I made this game and I really want to see it out in the world. I want to see it and that's where a lot of designers are, is they've created a game and they just want to see it come to life.
A lot of times they'll put it on Amazon too.
So they'll do a Kickstarter and maybe have 500 backers. So they may, with that, order 1,000 copies of it total. So there will be those extra 500 that will hit Amazon or something, or they'll sell through their local store, or they'll sell it through their website, but it's not necessarily going to go through mass distribution, through retail. So that's just something to think about as a why to back a Kickstarter. If it's a small game that you really like and it's a publisher you've never heard of, that may be something to look at, to reach out to them, which also raises another question of the publisher you've never heard of. It says it big, bold letters on the Kickstarter website: backing isn't buying. There is risk involved in Kickstarter. Just because you put your $100, $200, $300, whatever it is, $5 towards that Kickstarter, and they fund and they exceed their goal, there is no guarantee that you are going to get that game, and especially in any sort of set amount of time. Always expect that it's going to go long, and there are games that have funded well past their funding goal and honestly were just mismanaged, or some other unforeseen circumstances happened, and
that happens.
And it happens,
life.
Whether it's just the publisher's fault or just things totally out of their control. Things happen, and then they don't have the financial ability to finish the production of the game, so that game never comes to life, and the backers are just out. There's no guarantee, there's no refund policy. Once you back a game and it finishes and that money comes out, there's no guarantee that you're going to get it back.
Yeah. I mean, bottom line, Kickstarter is an investment. Just like anything that you put your money towards to invest in. Luckily, with this investment, you get an awesome game out of it typically. You've done something good, helping a publisher. There's some really awesome ways. We are definitely not saying Kickstarter is bad at all.
Yeah.
but it is definitely an investment. So you have to look at it that way, as
Right.
well as you're getting an awesome game.
And
out of
it is exactly an investment. You are investing in a company's production of the game, and your share of that investment is whatever level of the game you back for.
Yep.
And if you're curious about a publisher, go on to one of the forums. Go to the Board Game Geek Facebook group or to the Board Game group. Find a large group on Facebook or on other social media and ask, hey, this game looks really cool. Are you familiar with the publisher? Have they done any before? Are they reputable? Things like that. What was your experience with them? And they'll tell you. Like
a lot of times the publishers or someone who works for that publisher is actually in that group as well, and they love to talk and make that connection. And something that's awesome with the board game community is it's all about being at the table and having conversations and connecting with others. And so if you're not yet on Facebook board game groups at all, there's so many awesome ones out there, and everyone is like, yes, look at the games.
Yes.
They love talking about games that they love, and they love discussing games that they're interested. And so if you're ever wondering about a Kickstarter game, you can always message us, email us, comment below on this video, or just go and ask other publishers. You can email publishers. They love connecting with you, answering your questions, and letting you know why that investment would benefit you.
Right. So the last thing we want to touch on, the last kind of topic that needs to be discussed, which is really the elephant in the room right now, of not this room, but just the board game room right now, is the supply chain issues with and the cost of a shipping container to get from China to the west coast of the United States.
It's like the mafia.
Has gone up. Yeah, it's gone
ridiculous.
up over 600% since pre-COVID. There are a couple great videos we've seen. Alex from Board Game Co. and Jesse from Quackalope have both done videos on that whole situation.
We'll put those
if
links
nothing
below.
else, just to kind of learn about it. It's fascinating. It's sad, but it's fascinating to see what's going on with that. I think Jesse's video was pretty much why your Kickstarters are going to be late and cost more. And Alex's was on the same kind of just how that works out, more just how the publishers are handling it and being upfront and honest about shipping costs, things like that. But we'll link both of those below. Those are both great videos on this topic. But right now, in June of 2021, if you are about to back a Kickstarter, know that the shipping cost, there should be a table at the bottom of the page that tells you what the estimated shipping cost is to your country.
It's estimated.
Yes. And I just checked a couple today. They're high.
But they have to.
But that shipping cost is not included in the cost that if you're backing at $100 level, they're going to take out that $100 and then shipping. And with
separate.
Yes.
Like, it's going to be a separate price.
Right. It'll all be taken out at the same time, most likely, but it's going to be in addition to the $100. Yep. So just know that there's a chance that it may change. Some publishers got blindsided by this, and they're having to come back and they're having to decide if they want to either just wait a year and see if it gets cheaper. Their games are being held hostage at a warehouse in China because they can't secure a shipping container for a reasonable price. So they're having to decide if they want to go back to their backers and raise prices on shipping, or if they want to just
eat the cost,
or just wait it out. A lot of them can't eat the cost. Some can. A lot of them can't. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in increased prices
for a game.
Yeah.
For a game.
For a game.
They're great games, but it's for a game.
Yeah. And just remember, on that topic specifically, on the other side of every one of your complaints is an actual person answering the phone, writing emails, things like that, who is just as blindsided as you are, who had no idea when they ran their Kickstarter a year ago that what cost $4,000 then was going to cost $20,000 plus now. And depending on how many games they had to make, it may be multiple shipping containers. Like it's insane. I think I saw one that went, and I think it was in one of those videos, that their estimate when they did the Kickstarter was like $30,000 for 4 containers, and now they were looking at like $130,000 or over $100,000 for the same thing just a year later. So be aware of that right now. There is a lot of risk built into Kickstarters for that reason right now. And it's not even risk.
If you get an email from the publisher that you backed a game and they're asking if you could put in $10 additional for shipping, think that's $10 compared to all of that they're the other price that they're looking at. If the game, that you backed it
Yeah.
Don't be upset that they're asking for that
just
because
have some
they have to
grace
swallow
and-
their
yeah.
own pride to come out and ask you for that.
A lot of the people that are launching Kickstarters now have a little less of an excuse because they're in the middle of it. They should be building that in to their shipping estimates, to everything now.
Or at least letting everyone know, hey, backers, we love you, we appreciate you, this is what's going on.
But the people that, the publishers that backed a game a year ago had no idea this. This is totally unprecedented.
blindsided, yeah.
So just keep that in mind as you go through. And that, again, our point of this video is not actually don't back Kickstarters.
That's not what we're saying.
It's just, if you're new to the hobby, and we know that a lot of our audience is newcomers to the hobby, that's the whole point of this channel, is to get more people playing board games, to get them playing modern board games, spending time with their families, enjoying that time. And there might be a better investment of right now time in games that are already on the shelves. If you have a game out there in Kickstarter world that you really want to have, back it. Great.
Yes.
Treat yourself. But
Treat yourself.
just know what you're getting into when you do that, because we know that there's a lot of newcomers that, again, think that the campaign ends in 30 days, so I'll probably have it in like 45 days. They assume that the campaign ending means all of these games are just sitting in a warehouse waiting to be boxed up. They look at it as a pre-order, and it's just not that.
Yeah.
But I saw great, and we'll end with this. Saw someone mention that like backing a Kickstarter is like buying a year from you now a present.
Oh.
And it is. And if
Here
you
you go,
forget
you.
if you forget which ones you back, because they don't tell you like your Kickstarter is shipping.
Some of them do.
Some of them do.
Some of them
They
do.
and they like publishers send out updates. Like they say they're very good at usually
A lot
of
of them
saying, hey, this is. And a lot of them send you, it's cool to see you get some behind the scenes as a backer, where they send you, hey, here's some video from the factory, or here's our first kind of production proof kit. And that's been really fun with the ones we backed. Yeah. And they do say like they're starting to fulfill, but you're not going to get a tracking number most likely that says
I don't think we ever have.
Yep. So it's going to show up to you like a little surprise in the mail, and you have that game that you forgot that you ordered 2 years ago.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to back Kickstarters, again, especially if it's from a reputable publisher.
Or a game you love.
You are most likely, there's very little chance that you're not going to get the game. That's not the risk we're talking about. It's just understanding that it's going to be a long time. There's a lot of unknowns. They usually take longer than estimated, and there may just be better ways to invest your money in the time being and to refine and learn more about the games that you like.
Yep.
So this was long,
It was, but it's okay.
but hopefully it was good information. And we've been in this. This is a conversation we have been actively having.
Constantly have right now.
Because there's a new Kickstarter every month. There's one now. There's one.
There's like 5 right now,
Yeah.
but he's like,
Yeah, there's a lot, and they're all great games, and we are excited to possibly support those publishers. Because our kid Jared and Peyton are going to have, like, there will be a time where we're on this same channel going, hey, we have a Kickstarter coming. Jared and Peyton are Kickstarting their game. It'll happen.
It'll happen, believe me.
So it's not that we're against it in
And
any
the
way.
games that we have that we feature as previews for Kickstarters, a lot of those games are actually just prototypes that go through different reviewers. So the physical game that we have, we don't actually always have that game to keep.
Right.
So we'll play a game and like, wow, we really like this.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to back it. So our way of supporting that publisher is to help them get the word out. But then we also sometimes have to back. Yeah, so we'll have to go and back it as well. Even though we were able to play it, which is awesome, and show you, we don't always have the game.
Yeah.
So we will be backing a lot of those games as well. So we're in the same boat.
Yep. So that's our thoughts on
Yep.
it. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this at least helps you maybe clear up some confusion if you're a newcomer to just how Kickstarter works, and just make you think a little. So
Yep. And you can always ask any other questions or talk along the same subject line down below. We'd love to have that conversation with you. You can shoot us an email, find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or on all those. Just having this conversation is something that we're just continuing to do. A lot of people in the community are having these kind of conversations. It's who we are. We're just people in the same boat as you, loving games.
we love games and
Yep.
happen to have a YouTube channel. So there you go. And speaking of, hit that subscribe button to this YouTube channel that you're watching right now.
And we have some more videos right here.
Yep, we will see you later. Bye.
Bye.